Hi, everyone. Welcome to this month's session of our monthly JSTOR Digital Stewardship Services training webinars. Today's will be about the basics of cataloging in stewardship. Every month in 2026, we are rotating a different topic from our series of 3 webinars about stewardship's digital asset management capabilities. April's topic next month will be about advanced features. In May, we will cover project administration, and then in June, we will be back to cataloging. To learn more or register for any of these sessions, please see the link we are going to share in the chat right now in your go-to panel. My name is Elizabeth Behrens, and I am a lead on the Education Services team at Ithaca, and I am joined again today by my colleague Remus Jackson, who is also an Education Services lead. This webinar, as always, will be recorded and posted to our YouTube channel, and a link to the video will be sent out to you by email in a few days. We have a handout for this session, and we are sharing the link with you in the chat right now. Our follow-up email will also include a link to the handout, which has a number of resources for you to learn more about using stewardship. And it will include the questions we cover today in our Q&A, as well as the recording link once it's available. If you aren't seeing the links in your go-to panel, if you need help finding it, look at your go-to control panel, which is likely on the right side of your screen. And there's an area with a question mark called the questions pane, which functions as the chat box for go-to. After you exit the webinar today, you will be taken to our very brief survey, probably familiar to you by now, about how useful this session was for you. Please take a moment to answer the questions if you can. There's only 3 questions, and as this information is very helpful for us for planning purposes, we always look at these very closely, as well as the comments you leave when registering for sessions, and we really appreciate your input. You'll also be sent a link to the survey by email in about an hour. Okay, so let's look at our agenda today. I will be walking you through some basic cataloging functionality and stewardship. I'll be taking you through some different workflows of cataloging a single record, then bulk cataloging a few different ways, and we'll also cover audio and video files, sets and filters, and publishing functionality. Like I said, there's that questions box in GoTo where you can enter questions at any time, and we'll keep an eye on it and hopefully have about 15 minutes or so for questions at the end of the training. So Remus and I are going to turn our cameras off now so you can see my screen a little bit larger. Okay, so as I said, we'll start out by cataloging a single record, and along the way, we'll look at how to use the different field types that may be in your project. We'll also look at how to enter a URL in your metadata to be a clickable link for your end users. And we'll leave the slides now and go into stewardship. All right, so first we're going to review the single record cataloging workflow. I'm going to open this project I have called Public Art and Architecture. And I'm going to upload a new image file to this project for cataloging. So going to the Add menu, I'm choosing Upload Media. And I'm going to find my file. And there it is. And I will upload this file. Okay, it might take a moment for the thumbnail to generate when you first upload a file, but the record is there. And if I open it up, I can see the image. So let me just refresh because I just uploaded it. It might take a moment to show up. There it is. Okay, so this photograph I'm going to catalog is of a sculpture in Reykjavik, Iceland, by the sculptor Sigurjón Ólafsson. I took this photo myself years ago, and I want to just catalog it quickly for you today. You'll note I have a few different cataloging forms available in this project, and I've set these up myself to make it easier and faster to catalog different types of works. So the cataloging forms you can access at the top of your metadata fields up here. You can set these up yourself if it would help you with your workflow. And we did cover this in last month's webinar on project administration, which we'll do again in a couple of months, or you can watch the video on YouTube. This is a sculpture, and I have a form I've set up for myself about sculpture. So I'm going to open that one up. So I'll go ahead and start cataloging this image. So at the top here, we have some fields for title and alternate title. These are text fields, and text area fields like the description field below, accept any Unicode characters. In the interest of time, I'm going to be copying and pasting my cataloging data that I've already prepared for this demo. The sculpture is called Pack Horse in English, so I'm going to enter that in the title field. And for the alternate title, I'm going to put in the Icelandic title, and I'm not going to attempt to pronounce that right now, but there it is. Text area fields, like the description field, are free text fields with a larger display. Note you can zoom in on the image while cataloging if that helps you see more detail. You can also use this tool to pan around the image if there's anything you'd like to look at closer. And another quick tip to show you, let's go back to the image here. If I want to have a little help with cataloging, I can even go to the Edit Media menu and go to Search in Google, and it'll just do the Google image search on the image from right within Stewardship if I want to find any information about this work that I might find in Google. Results may vary, of course. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my description field and enter this description. I actually copied this description from a website about this sculpture, and I'm just going to paste it in, and I included the source at the bottom. You might notice the source here is a link in the end of the description. And the description field is one of several fields within Stewardship that supports clickable URLs on the published JSTOR side. But you can't just enter the URL like this as it appears. You do need to enter the HTML markup. So I'm going to just copy and paste that with HTML markup that I have prepared right here. And then when this is published to JSTOR, the link will be clickable. And we do have a support article about this if you want more details about using the HTML. Oh, and thanks, Remus. Remus just shared this in the chat for us. Okay, so I'll just enter a few more points of data on this record, like the image view description, which is also a text area field. And the contributor of this work is a sculpture, of course. This is an example of a linked field. And as you can see, there's a button here that says Add Links to access any linked authorities that have been incorporated into this project's fields. Getty's Art and Architecture Thesaurus, the Thesaurus of Geographic Names, and Shared Shelf Names, which is a combination of Getty's Union List of Artist Names, along with additional names contributed by JSTOR and others in the community, are available as linked resources. So contributor here is linked to Shared Shelf Names. And I'm going to look for this sculptor's name. And there they are. And I can, just by beginning to type their name, I can find it. The record from ULAN is displaying here, along with life dates and any other additional information supplied by ULAN, which may include variant terms. I can choose to link to this name record, which would not, if I link only, it will not include any display text, but I could enter my own. If I link and then publish a record, users searching for this name would still get this in their search results because the record is linked to the name. I can also link and append to any display data I may have already entered in the field. And the last choice is link and overwrite to use only the display data supplied by the name record. I haven't entered any data in the field yet, so I could choose either of these. If I were searching for a name that doesn't exist in the linked vocabulary, I can add it myself. So for an example, if I search for a name that isn't found, I'm just going to add an N here to not find any results. I then have the option to create a new name. If I click that Create Name button, this takes me to the name form, where you can enter as much information as you have, but you must include a name and a source in order to save the record. Once you do that and do save the name, you do have the option of sharing it with other stewardship users. We're not going to do that right now. Let's go back to the cataloging form and enter the creator's name. Okay. Next is the date field. Date is also a text field that will accept any Unicode characters. So for instance, if you were cataloging something that you didn't have precise information for, and you wanted to enter data like 20th century, 6th century BCE, or a value like prehistoric, you could enter that here. If you have very precise date, like a publication date, you can enter that in the precise date field, which as you can see, only accepts data in a date format. In this case, I know that the sculpture was created in 1966, and I know the foal was added in 1984. So I will enter that information. My next field is resource type, and this is a list field, which means it accesses a controlled list. In this case, the list is supplied by JSTOR. Resource type appears in the JSTOR template, and it is an important field to always catalog because it determines when your records will appear in JSTOR search results, as well as the download format on JSTOR. So when I click add terms, I'm taken to the list, and then I can start searching for the accurate resource type. In this case, I'm just going to call this a sculpture. I'll choose that and click done. Next, we have work type, which is a linked field. One thing to note about linked fields is these are actually free text fields that you can add links to, just like we did above with the sculptor's name. If the term you need is not in the linked resource, or if you'd like to add more information, you can append or link only to a linked term. So here I can add a link to Getty's AAT, and I'm going to search for public sculpture. There it is, and I'll choose to link and append it and look for an additional term. Let's try outdoor sculpture, and I'll append that. Okay, so now my two terms have been added, their display values are there, and the linked information is below in stewardship. So I'll just add a few more points of metadata here. I'll look for a subject and a culture. Subject here is linked, but I can also add free text if I like. I'm going to just add in, let's say for the sake of time, horses for my subject. Culture, I will search for Icelandic. And creation site, I'll search the TGN for Reykjavik. Oops, did I spell that wrong? There it is. Okay. I can add some measurements. I happen to know this is 330 centimeters tall. And I can leave it at that for now. I can always come back and complete more cataloging later, even after publishing. If I make changes, I can just republish. So let's look at the rights field. There's a controlled list of rights options, and whichever you choose will display as a rights icon on JSTOR. If you'd like, you can also use the rights notes field, which follows this field. That's a free text field where you can enter additional or explanatory details. So I'm just going to pick one of these at random here and for my rights term. And at the very bottom here, I have a Boolean field or a checkbox field, a field with a checkbox that you can use if needed in your workflow. And you can use a checkbox for any, you can enter the text that appears next to the checkbox. In my example, I call this ready for review if I wanted my records to be reviewed, and I can just check that. So I'll scroll back up to the top and save my record. If I feel that this is complete enough to be published and I have a publishing target set up on my project, I can just click the publish button at the top of the page. Or if I have several records to publish, I can always go back to the project view and select several and then choose publish. When you click publish, your publishing targets will pop up and you'll be asked to confirm which target, and then you click the publish button. Okay, so let's go back to the project view. If I had multiple records to publish, I could choose the 3-dot overflow menu at the top and this is where I publish. You can also suppress from this view if you have already published anything. Suppressing just means you're unpublishing the record, and deleting will completely remove the record from your project. If you, as I said, if you publish a record and later make changes to it, you will need to republish it in order for those changes to update in the published environment. And by republish, that just means you click publish again. There's no republish button. Okay, so that was our quick overview of cataloging a single record. And we're going to do something a little differently now. I have a few polls that I'm going to ask you to answer during this webinar. So let me find my first one. This will just take a moment. And I'm going to launch the poll, just asking you how you usually catalog items in stewardship. And we'll just wait a moment for you to answer, and then I can share the results. Okay, I'll give you about 10 more seconds just for fun to see what workflow you usually follow. Okay, so it looks like, oh, most people are here are new and don't catalog regularly. So great, welcome to our webinar about cataloging. And then we also have some people that bulk catalog more frequently and import already cataloged metadata. Great. Okay, thanks so much for participating in that. All right, let's go back to our slides. And next, we're going to talk about bulk cataloging. Okay. So for bulk cataloging, we're going to follow a few different workflows because there are a few different ways you can do that in stewardship, including our very newly improved bulk editing functionality, which you can see in my screenshot here. And we'll also look at using main records and using Excel. So let's go back over to stewardship for that. Okay. So first, we will catalog several records at once from within the stewardship interface by selecting multiple records and editing them together. As I said, this is a feature that was just updated really in the past couple of weeks. And I'm excited to be able to show it to you today because we've made some recent improvements. So I'm going to open a different project. Excuse me. I'm going to open this project called Example Project. And I'm going to choose several records for bulk editing together. Let me see. I think I have 6 I would like to show here. Let's look at these 4. Okay. So I'm just selecting a few records and I'm clicking edit at the top of the screen. The items I selected here are all related to productions of Salome. They're over here on the right, and the cataloging form where I enter data is on the left. So if the project has more than one cataloging form, you'll see the links to the forms at the top, and you can select whichever form is relevant to your editing. If you want to enter data for any of the fields for all records you've just selected, you can do that now. You see they all of the items are checked at the top, meaning, I'm sorry, over on the right, meaning that they are all selected by default for editing. If you have multiple records selected and any of the fields already contain data, you'll see the data here if it's the same across all records. And if it's different across the records, you will see the field say multi-value, meaning the records contain differing data within that field. You can overwrite the data in either case if needed for all of the records that are selected. So I can enter some data here. If there's data that you need to enter that doesn't apply to all of the records that you've selected, you can deselect any of the items on the right and then enter the specific data for those records that are selected. So if I'd like to deselect any of these I just want to select actually this one example of Aubrey Beardsley's Salome, and I can catalog just the information for this one record that is selected. If I want to add additional names like Oscar Wilde, I can do that here. And now both of those terms have been linked. So to delete any data that appears in any of the fields, you can click the X next to the data if you need to do that. Be sure to save when you are finished. A new feature with the update to bulk editing is now you can also publish directly from the bulk editing page. So you just select which records or select all of them by using the select all button and click the publish button at the top. Okay, and I won't make you wait for my target to appear. I'll just close out of that. All right, so another way to catalog in bulk is by using the main record functionality. So let me close this project and go to a different one. Let me go back to all projects, and I'm going to open this project I have called Nature. And let's see some photographs of tree frogs resting in flowers. I have a couple here at the bottom. If you have, for example, one well-cataloged record and are about to catalog other similar items in your project, you can set that first record as a main record, and then copy any or all of its data to your other similar records. So for example, this photo of a dahlia with a tree frog has some details in common with other records in this project. So to set this as a main record, I go to the menu above the image and choose set as main. And then I can close this record or go back to the project. And this is something I could also do from the table view. If I wanted to set a record as a main record, I would select a record and choose set as main when the record is selected. Now, when I open additional similar records, I can go back to that menu at the top and choose paste from main. And then all of the cataloging data from that first record has been pasted into this record. Any values already in the record will be overwritten, but then you can then, of course, make changes to the record to remove any irrelevant values if needed. So for instance, I think I copied the title from the other record, so I will delete that, and I could insert the correct title of this dahlia here if I wanted to. Okay, I'm just going to click Save and Close. The next bulk editing we will look at is Excel. You can, of course, work with your data outside of stewardship in Excel, as it sounds like many of you are, to catalog in bulk. To do this, you simply export any or all of your records to Excel by selecting them. So I'm just going to select the first few records here that are all of seascapes. And then you choose Download Metadata from the three-dot menu above the records. This will generate and download an Excel file. Once it's downloaded, you can open the file to see all of the data that's exported from your project, if you have any data there, or you'll see some blank records with the file name and the SSID, as in my case. So if you have the same data across records, or if for whatever reason you'd like to enter data in Excel, you can easily do that here. So I'll just enter a couple of points of data, for example. I'll just put my name as contributor because I took these pictures. And whoops. And I'll just enter the year. Okay, so then you just have to save the file and close it, and then go back into stewardship. And then to update those records, you just go back to that same menu and I'm sorry, you don't. You go up to the add menu and you choose import metadata. You find your file, which is probably still in your downloads folder. And upload it. And I have a confirmation here that 6 items in my project have been updated. And just to confirm, I'll scroll over to those fields where I just added a contributor name and a date for those records. Okay, let's go back to the slides for a moment. All right, so audio and video files. As you probably know, your stewardship subscription includes audio and video uploads and publishing. I wanted to just show you some quick tips on using audio and video files. So we'll go back into stewardship. Okay, here we are back in that example project. Okay, so for example, I have an audio file in this project. Let me find it. Oh, let me go back to that example project. And right here at the top is an audio file, and I'll open that up. So this is a recording of a poem by the poet Eleanor Jenkins, and it's been uploaded to this project already. So when you upload a video or an audio file to stewardship, you'll see this transcript tab appear at the top. And this is where you can access the automatically generated transcript that is created for you in stewardship. When you publish the record, the transcript will also publish to JSTOR for users to see. If you'd like to make changes to the transcript, if there's any edits you would like to make, you can download it by using this button here, edit it, it'll be a VTT file, and then re-upload it to the record. So just to show you what this looks like, this record has already been published to JSTOR. Here it is. I'll open the record in JSTOR and the transcript is here. So this is the transcript that came from stewardship that was automatically generated. Each of these links, if I click it, will jump ahead to that part in the recording for users to hear. Let's go back into stewardship. So as you can see, the image for this audio file is a generic audio icon, but you can upload your own image to replace this with, which may make the contents clearer to end users once it's published to JSTOR and to yourself in stewardship. So to change this, you go beneath the image here, there's a button called Edit Thumbnail. And I'm just going to choose Replace Thumbnail and find an image to use for this image's thumbnail. So I think I have I have the cover image from this anthology. I'm just going to enter that and click Upload. And then it will replace that audio icon with the image. I do need to then republish this record for the item on JSTOR to also show this updated thumbnail. So I'll just save it and publish the record. Okay, if I click publish. So video files work very similarly. If I go to open a video file, the thumbnail or the image for the video is chosen a few seconds into the video, but if I wanted to replace this with my own image, I could do that in the same way. So I can replace the thumbnail that represents the video by going to Edit Thumbnail and choosing Replace Thumbnail. And I can upload an image file. Also, this will be what JSTOR users will see when they go to look at this content on JSTOR. So I have a poster image for this video, and I'll click Upload, and then this image will be replaced with the thumbnail. Okay. And then I would republish, of course, for that to appear on JSTOR, but I won't make you sit through that right now. All right, so that's a little bit about audio and video. Let's look at another quick poll for fun. Let me open up the next one. What kind of content do you most often catalog in stewardship? Let's give it about 20 more seconds. It's interesting to see these responses come in. All right, let me share the results. Looks like mostly a mixture of all of these kinds, or archival documents or images of art and architecture. So thanks for sharing. That's interesting to see. All right, let's go back to our slides and look at the next slide. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about organizing your records. We'll look at sets and filters. Let me jump back into stewardship so I can talk about these. So the example in the screenshot here is looking at sets. All right, so if you haven't worked with sets before, a set is a static manual grouping of items that you can create to suit your own needs in stewardship. These groupings of records, the sets, are not visible or connected to published records. They're only for organizing your own work on the stewardship side. They don't relate to the published environment on JSTOR or otherwise. So to create a new set, select any of your items and then go to the menu at the top, the 3-dot overflow menu it's called. And you can choose add to new set, or if you have sets already, you can choose add to existing set. I'm going to create a new set here, and I'll name this one poetry. If I wanted to add a description, I could at this point, and then I can choose to the access level or the permissions. And this is, again, referring only to people that can access this project in stewardship. I can make it available to everyone who accesses this project, or I can choose particular users by making it restricted, or I can make this a private set, meaning only I can see this set in the stewardship project. Then you just click save. Once you have sets, you'll have the sets menu on the left side of your project panel, and you can see all of the different sets you have created. By clicking on them, you can see the items in those sets. To remove any items from a set, you can just select the item and then go to the 3-dot overflow menu at the top and choose remove from current set. This is not deleting the items from your project, it's just taking them out of the set. To add items to existing sets, while viewing all items, you can just choose any of your items and then click the little plus icon that appears next to any of the set names to add them immediately to those sets. This is a new feature in stewardship too, to be able to quickly add to sets. Okay, so that is a little bit of working with sets. Next, we'll talk about filters. So let me go back to all items and close the sets menu. Filters work a bit differently from sets. They let you narrow your records using any data point, including your project's fields and administrative details like cataloger or last updated date. You can also save filters, and their contents will update automatically as your project data changes to match the filter criteria. You can use filters a couple of different ways. I'm sorry. I just saw a note that the Excel file that I was sharing to show you my cataloging data wasn't visible. I think I shared my screen. I shared my window and not my whole screen, and that's why it wasn't visible. Maybe when we go into the Q&A, I can show you guys. I can show that again, so we don't miss that part of the presentation. Okay, so filters. Filters are, let's go back to filters. You can use filters a couple of different ways. You can enter filtering criteria on any field in your project by looking at the filter icons across the fields at the top of your project. That appears on the asset panel next to each field name. So for instance, if I select the filter here in the title field, I can search for records that have specific text in the title, or only find records that have this field empty or populated. Another way to filter is by opening the filter panel, which you can do by clicking the filter button above all of your records. This opens a filter panel here on the right side of your screen, and all of your fields will display, and you can enter your filtering criteria as needed. And you can also enter criteria in multiple fields to narrow down your results. So for example, if I filter by resource type, and I want to just search for pamphlets within my project, I can just apply that filter and find those records that have been cataloged as pamphlets in the resource type field. If I want to narrow it down further by the date the record was created in stewardship, I can enter that information as well. So I can just keep on entering criteria if I want to see content created since whatever date, let's say since January 2026 to today. And I can apply those filters and it might narrow it down a bit. Then you can see at the top of the screen what filters have been applied. And if I want to remove any of them, I can one piece at a time. To save a filter, you just select Save as New Filter at the bottom of the screen. I think there it is. Sorry, it was being covered by my go-to panel. And then name it and describe it if you like. So I'm going to call this just pamphlets for now. I can always change this later. And then you have the same options for the permissions. I'll keep this one private and I'll click Save. So the nice thing about filters, the content within your filters that are saved, you can access the saved filters at the top of the filter panel. And as new items in your project meet whatever criteria you apply in your filter, they will then appear in the filtered results. The content isn't static like a set would be. Okay. All right, let's have one more quick poll. All right, very interesting to me. What kind of stewardship training materials are most useful for you? We'll just leave this up for about 30 seconds. Okay. Looks like written documentation and video tutorials are most useful, and as well as some webinars. All right, thank you so much for your responses. All right, let's go back to the slides. All right, we have time for questions. First, though, I want to make sure I share my screen properly so I can show you that Excel. Sorry about that. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment and share again. Okay, let me quickly go into Excel just to show you how that works. So if I select a few records here and download the metadata, that will generate the Excel file that will download automatically to my computer. And I'll open that up so you can see it. Sorry about that. I forgot that I wasn't sharing the entire screen. So hopefully you can see it now. This is the Excel file. If I wanted to, great. If I wanted to add any details here, I'm just going to add some nonsense here just so it appears. And click Save. I'll then close the file, and then of course I can re-upload it by going to Add, Import Metadata, finding the file from my downloads, and re-uploading it. Okay. Oh, I think I entered some data in the wrong kinds of fields. So you will get an error like this if there are fields that are set up to only accept certain kinds of data. You'll get this error screen that will let you know that I entered those nonsense 1, 2, 3 terms in list field, so it can accept them. So just to let you know, then you can go back and fix your Excel data to match your list terms or put them in an appropriate field and then re-import them. You can also download your errors to get more information about what you entered incorrectly. And you can see that those terms are highlighted that I entered incorrectly. Okay, hopefully that was all visible and easy to see and understand. Alrighty, so that is the end of the cataloging presentation. Remus and I are going to come back onto screen to see if any questions have come in. Remember to answer the survey if you have to leave. It'll appear right away, and you'll also get it from us in an hour or so. Let's see, have any questions come in yet, Remus?
Yeah, we have one question, which is, can you import Excel metadata in XSLX as well as XLS, so both Excel formats?
Remus, you might know this better than me.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, both are accepted by the system.
Oh, great. Okay. All right.
Someone pointed out they didn't know that you could download the errors in Excel and that that's a nice feature for bulk work. I do think you unintentionally gave a really good demo of what to do when you run into those validation errors.
Yeah, that is nice to see. A little easier to understand too than the error message that appears to actually see it on the spreadsheet.
Someone asked, can you use number WS instead of Excel? I believe that is another spreadsheet software. Oh, sorry, numbers, just numbers without the WS.
Okay. I don't know if you can. Remus, do you happen to know?
Yeah, let me take a look. It will accept.
I mean, can you save numbers as a .xls? I don't know if that's possible.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think we have to follow up on that one. Someone added in since numbers is the Mac version, you could probably export it as a XLS or XLSX. Can you remove the auto-generated transcripts? Someone asked.
Yeah. So I believe the way you would do that is if you went to edit the transcript, you downloaded it and maybe re-imported a blank version. I'm not actually sure. That's a really good question, how you would do that. I wonder if anyone, I can't remember this coming up before. I can't remember how you would do it because you can download it to edit it and then re-upload whatever you like as the transcript. So perhaps if you didn't want a transcript to appear, you could do that by re-uploading something blank. That would be good to test. I'll have to test that out separately, but I can include that in our Q&A that we add, or the FAQ we add to the notes later.
I will say from an accessibility standpoint, I would not advise removing the transcript without replacing it with something. But of course, you can always upload your own transcript if you don't want to use the auto-generated transcripts.
Yeah, the only time I can think of an example where that might be interesting is if there is not spoken language on a video file. Sometimes transcripts are created automatically and it just looks like, some random letters or something based on the sound that appears in the file.
Yes. Someone asked, early in our session, you demoed the search in Google in the edit media dropdown. Does that only work for image files, or does it also work for PDFs and other file types?
I'm sorry, I need to look at the question to understand it. Search in Google, image files, and PDFs. I believe it's just for image because it's using Google's image search functionality. So I think it has to be an image for that to work.
Someone asked, can the precise date field support multiple dates? And they have two questions, but I'll start with that one.
I don't believe it can, because I think you're just entering, let me find a project with precise date. You're just entering information in that one field. Does that sound right to you, Remus? I don't think you can enter multiple.
Yeah, there is, if you have a a start date and an end date, you would probably want to use earliest, latest date fields instead of precise date. So there's a few different date fields in stewardship. The other question is, why doesn't the date field or why don't the date fields use the EDTF, which is the Library of Congress date format?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if we have information about that available right now.
I will say for precise date and earliest and latest date, those are tied to JSTOR search, so they are set up to kind of work and display on JSTOR specifically. We will add obviously to the handout the information about that.
Yeah.
See, there's a couple of questions. One of these is a question about compilations, which we actually covered in a different session, but can compilations, assuming you mean, yeah, can compilations support multiple file formats?
Right, so if you have created compilations, which we covered, I think, in the advanced features webinar, which we'll do again next month, you can include multiple file formats in your compilation. And a compilation is a grouping of items on the JSTOR side that you set up in stewardship.
And another question, are PDFs ADA compliant? So I believe that would be referring to PDFs that like someone's content that they're uploading into stewardship. Right now, there's nothing in when you publish to JSTOR PDFs, we do automatically apply OCR, but there's no like higher level PDF remediation. So it would be sort of up to you to make sure that you are supplying PDFs that are ADA compliant for publishing. I'm not seeing any other questions, but I will wait a moment to make sure if folks have additional questions. It seems like that's the end of the questions.
Okay. Well, thanks for all of these questions and thanks for your attention and answering the polls too. That was fun for us to try for the first time. We will update the LibGuide handout in the next couple of days with the links and the questions from today's session. Please let us know if any other questions come up. You can always contact support at jstor.org. Otherwise, we hope to see you next month at our next webinar. And thanks so much, Remus, for your help. All right, thanks everyone.